Good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday evening update on what is still potential Tropical Cyclone 9 here, located in the Eastern Caribbean, advancing to the west-northwest rather quickly here. We have two still well-defined areas of vorticity here that are rotating around each other and around what is kind of a centroid here. But they have neither of which have really become super dominant enough to where one can just take over and move along as a tropical cyclone. We don't have a defined circulation in either of these two vorticity maximums, and so as a result, we kind of just still have this north to south, almost north to south tilted wave axis in here that has just been advancing off to the west-northwest all day with little change in organization. Really, all that has changed in the overall organization is that the storm is no longer tilted off to the northeast as it was yesterday, and so now we have something that's a little more upright if you look at satellite imagery. And models have been a little more consistent on where exactly whatever comes out of this may be. A lot of the models have kind of come to the resolution today that it has the overall circulation of the storm will likely remain oblong here up until it interacts with Hispaniola, and we're going to talk about what exactly happens with each lobe of vorticity here as this advances to the west-northwest and eventually interacts with Hispaniola. Here is the 5-day track. As you can see, tropical storm warnings are still in effect for most of the Eastern Caribbean here and now into the Turks and Caicos Islands. And the central Bahamas are now under tropical storm watches as this advances here. You can see the National Hurricane Center, due to where the approximate center is, has this going directly over Hispaniola. And this is not necessarily wrong. It definitely is not. Because if you go back to the true color loop, you can see if you look at an average of where these two vorticity maximums are, you can kind of see where where it would be if you kind of average these two out. And so that is why you have what the National Hurricane Center predicts as a circulation that's just above 16 north here and advancing off to the west-northwest. As far as impacts go for Florida, Cuba, and the northern Bahamas, or northwestern Bahamas, still a lot to iron out here. You still have interaction with Hispaniola that will either kill or help the storm. There's a lot of variables here that may happen. We're going to get into all of those. So let's look at the European model first. Here it is right now. This was earlier this morning, and so you have what is just an oblong storm here that is still, represented pretty accurately in the actual satellite loop, and it is advancing quickly off to the west-northwest, and actually it covers a ton of ground in one day. The vorticity crashes into Hispaniola. You still have this kind of long axis here to the there's kind of an axis here that is actually centered over Hispaniola, but there's vorticity on both sides, and so this actually is able to shed off the southern side of its wave axis here. Here's that remnant of the southern side, and then this is the much stronger now depicted by the Euro northern side here that is in the southeastern Bahamas here, which this would likely mean it is a tropical storm here. A strong tropical storm as this continues on to the northwest, and you can see that the European model has significantly has changed a little bit here regarding the intensity and where not really much as to where it will be. This is largely the same, and you can see why this storm is still strong in here, significantly so compared to the last run, which had it as a weak system here that was barely surviving, and now it is much further to the north and east. There's still a lot to iron out about where exactly this will be, but models are generally more in agreement as to this being off the coast of Florida come day 3, depending on where exactly the vorticity maximum comes out here and how strong that is. Still a lot to iron out after this passes through Hispaniola, but this is one solution that does keep the intensity or have this vorticity maximum ride the coast and tighten up as it is interacting with these mountains, because sometimes land interaction is beneficial to spinning up cyclones, and so you can have a positive feedback loop into a storm becoming stronger due to the winds kind of bouncing off of the mountains here and going back into the storm, rather than if it was onshore and going over the mountains, then this would just die, because there would be it would kind of gut the center of the storm and the storm would not be able to intensify. And so that's why you have the southern side of the system here that becomes very broad and just a wave, and kind of separates itself from the actual system here. This would be, if this does verify, this would be Tropical Storm Isaias. We still have a lot to see about that, because the GFS model run for 24 hours from now, you can see, I'm actually going to go all the way back to 0 hours. You can see how GFS has what we're seeing here on the true color loop, a very similar setup structurally speaking, and the GFS does a similar thing where the northeastern side is able to concentrate itself, and the southwestern side is also, there's still two vorticity maximums here that ultimately kind of just run in to Hispaniola. You can see this kind of center of the wave axis here that runs into Hispaniola, and what happens is that this northeastern side, it's very similar to the European model here. The northeastern side is able to consolidate because it sheds off some weight, so to speak, on the southwestern side. You can see this axis becomes disjointed from the overall system, and so this is actually able to organize rather quickly here and become Tropical Storm Isaias and track through the Turks and Caicos and then work its way up the Bahamas. And you can see here we have a well-defined tropical cyclone at this point that is off the Florida coast. Where exactly this is will ultimately be determined by where exactly this is when it is back over here in north of Hispaniola. So if it's a little further to the north, it'll track a little further away from Florida. If it is further to the south, it'll track a little closer to Florida. Cannot exactly pin down where this may be, but again, I'm going to keep reiterating that until we figure out what exactly happens with the interaction of with Hispaniola, because models are having such a difficult time resolving this, we can pretty much just sit and wait until this 24-hour period is up and see how this thing is doing come tomorrow evening. In the case of the storm intensifying here north of Hispaniola, we were talking about this trough the other day that was going to eventually shear the storm due to the outflow from the tropical system being too weak to deal with it. That is no longer the case, according to the GFS. This trough kind of just dissolves here. You can't really see it too much anymore, and the outflow of the storm is sufficient enough to push this trough away and actually create a pretty decent environment for this. There's not a whole lot of shear that is in the way of this system at this point in time, and so it allows it to intensify, and you can see shear kind of just collapses as this continues off into the Bahamas. So it's in a pretty favorable shear environment. This is better exemplified by the PV outlook for this. You can see the outflow coming out of the system more to the north and east here, and you can see the trough defined here, this little PV area. And as you advance this and the storm continues to intensify as it comes to the west, you can see that this trough is significantly suppressed here by the outflow coming out of what at this time would be Isaias. So really do need to watch out for this as this advances to the west. This could, if it does survive Hispaniola, it could be a substantial threat to the Florida Peninsula and the Bahamas, and maybe, later the southeast coast. There's kind of hints that this may, continue up the coast. This, again, is still long range here, and still a lot of time for this to happen. But if you are for this to kind of flesh out, but if you are on the southeast coast here, anywhere from the Outer Banks all the way down to Miami here, do be watching this very closely and kind of have your hurricane kits ready in case this does indeed come to your area. This won't be like insanely strong, but it could be something of note in here, and definitely is worth watching. If you're in the Bahamas, just kind of be watching this and be prepared. I know the northern Bahamas really don't need another tropical cyclone in here, so I hope that the people of the Bahamas are well prepared for whatever does eventually come their way. But for now, just stay tuned to the National Hurricane Center and your local National Weather Service offices for all the latest. Thank you to Levi Cowan for this fantastic site that he has created, tropicaltidbits.com. This is awesome. I really love it, and I enjoy using it every video. That's all. Thanks for watching.